A question that often comes up when I test Macs in music production is how much memory you need. When you're buying a new Mac, you have to decide right away. Memory is not something you can change after the fact you have placed your order for a new Mac on apple.com. In today's video, we are going to try to put a light on that. I have set up a Logic Pro project, so we are going to use Logic today with some instances of Kontakt, Playwright, also the included string library in Logic Pro. The reasoning here is that those plugins are mostly sample based, so they benefit from memory usage. But one interesting thing happened when I started testing this. I found out that having a lot of memory here is not necessarily perhaps the best case. So we're going to try different things today. We are going to try stem testing. We are going to try complete projects testing, try to duplicate them, and just look at how it affects the memory while we're doing so. Before we start the testing, we need to talk about how macOS handles memory. If you already know this, you can use the timestamps below to skip. So in this video, at the start here now, I'm using the M4 MacBook Pro with 48 gigabytes of total memory. And you might notice that when you have a fresh boot, you would assume that it doesn't use that much memory when it boots up. But if you take a look into the activity monitor, you can see that memory used is actually sort of quite a lot. You don't really have much stuff open. In my case, I have sort of my apps for Logitech mouse and some other kind of driver stuff. It's always open in the background, but other than that, it shouldn't really be that much. But this is actually normal behavior for macOS, and it doesn't mean that your system is actually running out of memory or that you need a lot of memory to just start macOS. Today we are going to take a look at Activity Monitor a lot, so I'm going to explain some stuff about Activity Monitor. So physical memory is the actual amount of memory you have in your Mac. Memory used is what you currently use by the system and the apps on your Mac. Cached memory is data macOS has stored in your free memory in case you need it later. And the reasoning for caching memory is that it will speed up the system, because bringing data from the memory is much faster than bringing it from the hard drive on your system or the SSD. Even if the SSD is fast, memory is faster. And when the system actually needs more physical memory, it will purge this cache quickly to make room for memory it actually needs. So having a lot of memory may have its benefits, even if you don't really think you need it, because macOS will always take advantage of the memory you have, sort of store things it think you're going to use in that memory, so the system feels much faster to use. So moved is when macOS has to move memory to the disk to make room for more physical memory. And if you have now high numbers here under moved, it might indicate that you can benefit from more physical memory. The memory pressure graph can also be useful to keep an eye on, especially if it moves into the orange or red area. This is something we are going to look at today as well. So we can see now this is a fresh start of macOS. As you can see, I don't have a lot of applications running here. Actually, I have Spotify running, so I can close that down. And as not sure if you can see that, but physical memory is 48 gigabytes and memory in use is 10 gigabytes, and buffered files are around, or cache is around 8 gigabytes, and moved is 0. What we can do is start up Logic, and you can take a look at the cached files, see what happens when we start Logic. So you can see cached files should go down. So the buffered here, it actually goes up. Okay, let's see. Now it's down to 9 gigabytes again. And now it's down to 5 gigabytes when Logic has started. So this is the Logic project I am running, and as you can see, it's loaded up now here with a lot of Kontakt 8 instruments and strings, and I have some sort of MIDI notes playing here, starting out right away. So you can also see here something called AU hosting service. So AU is audio units, and it says that it's sort of using 32 gigabytes, but the memory pressure is not high at all. It's just a small, tiny green line. And Logic Pro is using 800 megabytes, so that's not much. So what's happening now? When we start it off, I can take a look here. So when I start this, play it back, you can see it's going. Nothing is happening memory-wise, but you can see that the CPU usage is actually going pretty high. So not much memory used. It's using a lot of CPU actually. Duplicate this once or twice, see what happens, because what's happening now is pretty interesting. So let's just duplicate it and we can take a look here at memory. Nothing is really happening. Okay, so you can see that the memory pressure went up a little bit here, but one interesting thing is that the AO hosting service in Logic Pro here is using 97 gigabytes, or it's the reserved 97 gigabytes, but it's still not really showing any memory pressure down here. But what happens now if I press play? It just doesn't work. I get a system overload, right? I guess this is because of CPU constraints. So here I'm unable to sort of trying to max the memory as well. I can try to set the buffer to 128. Yeah, keep this at medium if that helps. But I have tried changing this to a higher buffer state, like 1024. It doesn't really sort of matter. The difference is sort of like 10 tracks or something, and it will buffer overload anyways. So we just have to wait for it to load all of the plugins here. We see that the sort of text is grayed out here, and we just have to wait until it loads all of the plugins. So now every plugin is loaded here, and if we try again with the other buffer size, it just craps out. Yeah, I get this system overload message. So when I'm using Kontakt and when I'm using the strings library, I can't even make enough tracks here to sort of tax the memory enough. You can see it's going up a little bit here. So here's a new blank project, and I want to try stems this time. Just import a bunch of stems in Logic and see what happens here. So these are stems from projects I have made. It's actually 242 different audio files. Total amount of data here is around 25 gigabytes of WAV files. So we are going to just drag this into Logic Pro, and you can sort of keep an eye on the memory stuff here, see what's happening. So we just drag it in. Let's see what the Logic says. So okay, they are stems and we want to create new tracks. So okay, let's see what happens there. So you can see it's waiting a little bit, and there we go. It didn't take that long. Okay, so now we have a bunch of stems here. As you can see here, not much usage on CPU, and memory is pretty low. So if you play this, oh, it starts maybe here somewhere. Okay. Yeah, so we get stuff happening, and we can just browse through the mixer. And yeah, stuff is happening. As you can see, things are playing, and it's basically not using much at all. So I don't know how many tracks these are. So these are 243 tracks. And memory used by Logic is 1.3 gigabytes. Memory pressure is low. Memory in use is 7 gigs. And buffered files is 27 files, or 27 gigabytes. So the reason I used 243 different types of stems is to sort of go around macOS file systems. I think if you sort of duplicate the tracks, you don't really duplicate the files. Because if you duplicate a file in macOS, it won't actually use more storage. It will just sort of point back to the original file if it's exactly the same file. So if you copy a file in macOS to another place on your drive, it will actually not take up more space. I'm not sure if Logic works this way. I don't claim to be an expert on this, but this is how I believe it works actually. So, but if we duplicate this more, let's say try 1,000 tracks. Okay, so 969. Nice. Try playing this back. So it's working fine, no sort of buffer system overload or anything. And yeah, you can see the mixer here. Let's just try to add a EQ here somewhere. And yeah, it works. Not much memory pressure. Logic is using 2.8 gigabytes. Yeah, when I run the Kontakt instruments and when I run the string library from Logic, you could see that Logic Pro used like 90 gigabytes, but still the memory load was not high enough. So I'm not sure if this is the best way to test it. I am no sort of orchestral producer, so I can't really make big orchestral projects. But what we can do is open up a released project I have done. So this is not only samples, it's a kick sample, it's a recording from a Moog synthesizer, loops here, sample instrument in Logic, so this one. The Legend, for example, this one is pretty heavy on the computer CPU-wise. Diva, especially heavy this one as well. Serum, yeah, other plugins like Repro. The memory pressure is maybe a little bit higher actually, but not that high. Let's duplicate it a few times, see what happens. And take a look at the memory usage when we do this. So memory in use, we can see it goes up 12 gigabytes. And let's duplicate it again. Okay, so 13, 14. Can we even play this back? Yeah, so it works playing it back actually. Let's try again. So 14 gigabytes, so duplicate it again, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Okay, so we are up to 20. And you can see the CPU usage here. So it's getting higher, but it's still not okay. Yeah, now system overload. So you see, I'm getting system overload before the memory pressure is increased here. So testing memory on this Mac with 48 gigabyte and M4 is actually difficult, at least for me. So we can change it to a lower buffer size, see what happens. I don't think that will affect it that much actually. I've tried the different buffer sizes and as I said, it will differ with a few tracks, but yeah, not that much. Yeah, we can see that the CPU usage is going up here. And we're getting a system overload, but I think it lasted a little bit longer actually. CPU sort of craps out before memory in this case. And of course the Mac is connected to power, the original power adapter, and we are using high power mode as well here. So I think we can take a look at a M1 MacBook Air and see if what kind of results we get there. So I wanted to make a quick test on the MacBook Air as well. This one you actually can't buy anymore. It's the 2020 MacBook Air with the M1 CPU and 8 gigabytes of memory. So this is actually not even possible to buy anymore. If you're going to buy a MacBook Air, the lowest one you're going to get is, I think it's M2 at the least recording of this video, and 16 gigabytes actually. So 16 gigabytes is the lowest amount of memory you get with the cheapest Mac you can buy today. So you can see when I have started up the system here now, so I have upgraded it, both the MacBook Pro and this one to macOS Sequoia 15.3, so they are running the same OS. And you can see physical memory here is 8 gigabytes, and memory in use is 4.72, and buffered files are 3.26. And you can, if you compare it with the M4 MacBook Pro earlier in this video, you can see that the memory pressure here is a little bit higher, but still in the green. I don't have all of the files I had in my previous testing on this MacBook Air because the storage is so low. And my wife is actually, this is my wife's Mac, so I can't really delete much stuff. So we'll see what we can make out of this. But I just want to show this while I'm doing this. So I'm going to sort of try to start up the RAM test project in Logic. It needs additional content, so we can download that, and obviously I don't have Kontakt installed here. So what we can do is just use the Logic string library and see what happens instead of using Kontakt, and just delete all of these tracks. So just do this while you see how the memory stuff is working here. All Macs you can buy today will perform better than this Mac you are seeing here now today, just so you know. And we can delete Kontakt here, and we just have to wait for it to download. While it's doing all of this, you can see that the efficiency course on the Mac here is working quite a lot. And you can see that the performance course here is, yeah, now it's sort of idle, but they have been working probably when I did some stuff around in Logic. Right now everything is sort of idle. Okay, so now all files are downloaded, and if we play everything here, we can see it works, and we can sort of see a little incline in the memory graph there. So I'm just using Logic strings here now, and I can't install a lot of stuff on this Mac because my wife really wants it back. But we can just change the violins here, so it sort of have to change the samples, I guess, and we can take a look at the memory there as well and see what happens while we are sort of changing up the instruments here. You can see something is happening, but I mean it's not much actually. Let's just go to, yeah, cellos, and again I just want to show what's happening while we are doing this, because when you want to buy a machine or a Mac or something and you want to use it for music production, and you can just afford the cheapest MacBook Air, for example, even that one is not really that cheap in the grand scheme of things, but yeah, included instruments in Logic is often pretty good in terms of efficiency. And see here now, we actually increased the memory usage a little bit. So just try another one. Okay, so now you can actually see what I wanted to sort of show off on the M4 MacBook Pro, but that actually had too much memory. Now you can see we get the memory pressure a bit higher here now, and we are using 8 tracks with a different type of sample-based instruments. But if I start playing it, it works fine. We can still see that memory in use is 6 gigabytes, buffered file is just 1 gigabyte, and moved is 0 bytes. So it has not moved anything to the swap space on the SSD. So if we duplicate this once more, so we have 16 tracks with sort of orchestral instruments built in Logic, we can see that doesn't seem like it uses much more memory. I think my theory is correct, that it's just pointing to the same sort of file, so it doesn't have to load more files. But if I add, let's say, something else instead of strings, let's see if we can add yeah, studio horns, for example. And we need to, of course, download something here. Let's do that. Okay, so everything is downloaded, and we are adding some trumpets as well to see if we can get some more memory usage. And you can see here it's actually gone down the memory load, and it's been moved 256 kilobytes of memory to the internal SSD. So what we're going to do is we are going to do the same with the horns and just add different type of sort of trumpets just to make it load other type of files. So here we go, let's try again. More horns, alto sax, tenor sax 1. Let's have a look at the memory usage while we are doing that. Number 2, okay. Let's add another one. Baritone saxophone, okay. And let's add another one. Let's add the trombone, and let's add another trombone, and number 3, and let's add number 4, and we can see that the memory is starting to go up there actually. Okay, so we can see the memory here is getting up, and we can see that moved memory is now 81 megabytes, not that much actually. Playing this back works just fine. Not much CPU usage going on here. Yeah, and memory is still pretty good. Let's just add some EQs here, just for fun, just to add some more stuff. And let's duplicate some of these tracks with EQs. And let's duplicate, yeah, let's take a look. So I guess these plugins from Logic is not really that demanding, or they are handling this memory usage quite well. Again, this is the lowest end M1 MacBook Air. You cannot get this one anymore with just 8 gigs of memory. Now we have 94 audio-based tracks here. Plays without any issue, without much CPU usage, because it's basically using memory. But again, it's not really up there. What I can do is try to copy over some of the stems I had and add the stems into this project. Now I have transferred the stems to this MacBook Air. It's actually 17 gigabytes of stems from actually projects I have made. And we are going to add these to this project as well and see if what happens with the memory. And let's go place, create new tracks, and it's stems. Okay, so let's see what happens. Take a look at memory load. We can see it's going up a bit. It's analyzing. This took was quite fast on the M4 MacBook Pro. Here it seems like it's yeah, it's added now. And just try to press play or increase it a little bit. Yeah, so you can see that it is still working. I guess I have to sort of duplicate the MIDI files here as well, like so. So now we are playing like 100 tracks with Logic's instruments, included instruments like strings, horns, stuff like that. And then I have like, I don't know, how many stems do I have? 160 stems. And everything here is playing. Yeah, it's working fine. Well, I don't have any plugins here now, so if I start adding, I mean, compressors and stuff, I guess you would maybe get some problems. We can see what happens if I do that. Just adding some EQs, adding some compressors. I think it actually added compressors on everything here. I'm not sure. Let's see. Yeah, I think so. It seems like it added compressors here on everything, if you can see that. Cool. Yeah. And again, you can see that it's not really increasing the memory a lot. You can see that the moved here is increasing a little bit, 336 megabytes. But that's not really that much. We have this sort of 267 tracks Logic project on this entry-level MacBook Air without any sort of a lot of plugins, except the compressor here included in Logic. And of course, you saw the other project I had where I was running my Project Glow on the MacBook Pro. That didn't max the memory. The CPU maxed out before the memory. I'm not sure if you should wait until it has analyzed everything here, so it keeps analyzing the files. You can see that it sort of increases the memory pressure a little bit, but it doesn't seem like it's increasing a lot. And if we take a look at the numbers here, so it stays at around 6.12 gigabytes, 6.17, 6.15, 6.13. So it sort of goes down and up a little bit, but it doesn't sort of move up a lot. I hope this helps you at least understand in a sort of a way how the memory stuff works on this Mac. And now we have actually stopped analyzing the files, and we can just take a second play just to see something is happening here. And we have audio from all of the tracks here, all 267 tracks. Works just fine. Let's just do a second thing here, just for fun, and just duplicate this a second time. 534 tracks, and we can see that the memory usage went up a little bit to 7 gigabytes. That's like 1 gig more. And we can see that moved is now went up to 400 megabytes, and we can see that the cache is sort of going down a little bit as well. So yeah, the efficiency here is quite good. But obviously when you use plugins, the results are something else, but that you have to check my other videos on my channel for that. So this type of testing is not the easiest thing to do, because there's not really a manual somewhere to say that do this and it should work just fine. I think the conclusion here is that the efficiency of these Macs are actually really good. The way it handles memory is seems like it's able to, I don't know how it does it, but if we looked at the M1 MacBook Air, the 8 gigabyte one, it was able to utilize the memory and play pretty high demanding Logic Pro projects. And if we look at my M4 MacBook Pro, it doesn't even touch the roof there on the memory side. I use more memory when I sort of edit thumbnails in Photoshop or edit my videos, these videos on DaVinci Resolve, then I use more memory. But for music production, it was hitting the CPU roof before hitting the memory roof. So if you're using a lot of plugins, such as the Diva, synthesizer, stuff like that, focusing on CPU speed before memory might be something to think about. But again, I think that focusing on getting a faster CPU before getting faster memory, it depends a little bit on what you do with your Mac. In music production, I think that you can get away with having a lower memory, because if you saw when I was testing my stems, so this is basically freezing a track. So if you have a big orchestral VST instrument and it's using a lot of memory, you could always freeze that orchestral instrument. It's going to be just like a stem. It wouldn't use any resources at all. I'm not sure. I think if I had to choose and if I didn't really know, I think maybe I would upgrade the CPU before memory, but it's on a case-by-case basis, so it's not really easy to sort of give an exact answer here. But I at least hope these videos showed you, yeah, what's at least happening when you're doing stuff like this, and it helps you choose whatever you need for your music production. Just a side note at the end here, if you're doing a lot of image editing, Photoshop, video editing, stuff like that, I think it's more important to look at more memory. I think those processes eat more of memory compared to music production. But again, it depends on what you do. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.